In this episode, we are kicking off G.I. Joe July with a look at some forgotten 90s military toys. So, stick around. Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and like I said, this episode we are kicking off G.I. Joe July, which is a celebration of all things G.I. Joe here at the channel, and military toy adjacent items as well, because a lot of those toys fit into your playtime universe with G.I. Joe. I mean, a lot of the times the word knockoff gets thrown around, which I'm not a fan of that term. So I just say that there are a lot of toy lines that pay homage and were inspired by the original 1982 G.I. Joe line by Hasbro. These are a few of those inspired toy lines that came out in the 1990s. Oh, and before I forget, I hope you don't mind the monthly little bumper title card. I know, I just thought it would be funny, so hopefully it doesn't offend any of those G.I. Joe diehards out there. I mean, I'm a diehard, but I still have a sense of humor and enjoy the silliness that the original cartoon brought to us. So enough of that. Without further ado, let's get to number one. Our first forgotten 90s military toy comes from Remco in the year 1990, and it is Desert Patrol. Now, Desert Patrol does something that I have not seen any of the other inspired toy lines do. It actually calls out G.I. Joe right on the front of the package. It says, hey, these toys, they can be played with G.I. Joe, couple other Remco products beneath that, and any other 3 3/4 action figures you may have lying around. So super props for that, for establishing that playtime universe like I mentioned, when you could just take all of your Army figures, your G.I. Joe, your Bronze Bombers, your Desert Patrols, and have one big happy family versus Cobra and what other bad guys you want to throw into the mix. Now, there were 6 figures in total, and yes, these are heavily inspired by Desert Storm and all the other conflicts that we had going on in the Middle East at this time period. Now, the names, they may need a little bit of help. Now, the figures, I mean, are very basic military figures, and they're not too shabby, but the names, like I mentioned. Here, let me throw some up here. We have Black Thunder, Colonel Stryker, Dead Blow, Major Reckoning, Radar Tech, which kind of looks like a green Michelin Man. I don't know what he has to do with radar technology dressed like that. Microwave technology, maybe? And Sergeant Sandblaster. Like I said, the names might need a little bit of help, but these are just good, generic, bare basic Army men that you can bring to your G.I. Joe playtime. And yeah, I ain't hating. I mean, Remco is definitely one of my top tier toy companies, because a lot of their toys in the early 80s were all that my parents got me. whatever was at Kmart, that's what I had. So a lot of the Remco Warlord figures and Conan figures and those awesome fantasy toy lines. And yeah, they dipped their toe into the military toy line pool a lot. And we'll talk about some of their other toy lines in the future, but I didn't want to make this list too Remco heavy. Anyway, let's get to our second entry. Our second toy line comes from a toy company called Toy Island. And these were released in 1991. And these are Fighting Talk. Fighting Talk were, again, kind of generic 3 3/4 G.I. Joe inspired army dudes. This time they come with a little voice pack on their backs that, well, we'll get into what that is in a second because I find it quite humorous. But you had a saying and 2 special effects noises. Now, one of the most awesome things about this toy line is each figure came with an accessory of some sort. Either a little bunker, some oil drums, a flag, just different things to flesh out your, playtime with these figures. They came with various weapons and gadgets and accessories, which is also an awesome addition to, your Joes. I mean, my Joes ran around with like the Sergeant Rock grease guns and things like that, so I had no qualms with mixing up my accessories between all my different military toys and some Star Wars toys. Now, the thing that I find humorous is that none of these figures actually have names. They just have the sayings that they say out of their little voice box. And these are, let me read these off. Come on, let's go! Hit the dirt! Yes, sir! Drop your weapon. Halt! Who goes there? And open fire! So, there were 6 in total, and yeah, each one, like I said, didn't have a name, just went by what their saying was. So, again, kind of like the Desert Patrol figures, on the packaging, it actually calls out that these voice boxes, voice backpacks, work on any 3 3/4 inch action figure. So I like that a lot of these people know that they are inspired by G.I. Joe and don't make any qualms about saying, hey, play with our figures with those figures. So again, props to Toy Island for saying that. Now our third toy line is definitely unique, and I think it is super awesome. These are the military Musclemen, released by original San Francisco toy makers in 1993. Now these figures, I would assume with some of the pictures that I've seen, are maybe 2-inch, maybe 3-inch scaled little tiny action figures. And there were a lot of them. There were 4 6-packs and 18 3-packs. So you would buy these little patrols like Deep Sea Patrol, I think there was even a Ninja Patrol, a Desert Fighting Patrol, Bad Guy Patrol, and the bad guys on this package look like they are straight up sci-fi bad guys. They look kind of alien in nature, and that definitely gives a thumbs up from me. Now, they had various vehicles and play sets for these little dudes, and I can't wait to get into those in future installments of Rad Rides and Forgotten Play Sets, because they are truly unique and really awesome. These are definitely original when it comes to being inspired by G.I. Joe. These seem to be inspired more by Muscles, maybe, because of their size and variety. And they kind of remind me of the Guts figures as well, that you would get in little 3-packs and 6-packs and things like that. So, yeah, I think I'm a fan of these, and they're not really super crazy expensive to pick up a handful of them. So, you never know. I might take a look in the future, and if I do, you'll be the first to know. Our fourth forgotten toy comes from Hinstar, which is one of those repeat offenders when it comes to being inspired by more popular toy lines. The only difference is these, I believe, are like a 5-inch scale. And these are United Nations Special Force, which was released in 1995. Like I said, these look to be about 5-inch in scales, so these could be like some military homies for your He-Man figures, I think. I'm only going by what I've seen online to what the scale could be, but anyway, they had, I think, 9 figures in total. See, one of the figures doesn't make an appearance on the back of the package, which is a little suspect. His name is Black Hawk, and I'll throw up his picture and we'll leave it at that. Like I said, it's a little suspect that he's not really mentioned on the back of the packaging. Anyway, some of the other characters are, and let me look at these. You have Grey Wolf, Radar Lens, White Hawk, Mr. Red, Big Nose, Junior Foxy, Mad Dog, and Uncle Judge. Now, I'm not going to call it out, but it is a little suspect that, like I said, they have Black Hawk and White Hawk, and yeah, like I said, we'll leave it at that. Anyway, these came in regular packs with the single figure, and they also had 2 packs available, which you got a good guy and a bad guy. Now, our fifth and final forgotten 90s military toy is one that I wish I could collect. I wish I could find these for a cheap price, but alas, they're kind of all over the place, and they're not as expensive as some of the things on this list, but they're pretty darn close. Anyway, these are Power Commandos, released by Lucky Bell in 1992. The thing that I love the most about these figures are a lot of them have masks, have helmets. They are just nondescript in their awesomeness. I mean, they're not just your typical camouflaged army guy or drab green army dude. These are something entirely different. I mean, there's a dude named Mummy that is like a mummy dude with a military hat on. Kind of reminds me of that mummy in the Bionic Commando video game. Anyway, there were 6 2-packs released and 6 single packs, and I believe the singles also were available in the 2-packs and vice versa, but there were figures released in the 2-packs that weren't released in the singles. So yeah, it gets kind of confusing, but some of their names were Communicator, Night Serpent, Condor Strike, Red Haven, Lynx Eye Jack, Laser Cut, Mummy Mask, that's the dude, Metal Hawk, Sniper, Sound Speed, X-Ray Eye, and Submarine. I mean, the dude's named after a vehicle, but I assume he's an underwater fighter of some sort. But like I said, these figures look really awesome, and the artwork on the packaging is super nice as well. I mean, those 2-packs, they have both characters in an awesome just art style fighting each other. And they had file cards on the back of the packaging inspired by G.I. Joe. Now, this is something that I would never call a knockoff, because they took the blueprint of a G.I. Joe figure and they went somewhere completely different with it. Like I said, all these dudes have masks and helmets and just look freaky awesome, like sci-fi infused army dudes. And yeah, I am super down. And yeah, like I said, I wish I could collect these, and yeah, one day I'll be brave enough to surf eBay and see how much they go for, but I am not holding my breath that there'll be something that I can afford. Anyway, Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed this look at 5 forgotten 90s military toys. Yeah, like I said, a lot of them were heavily inspired by G.I. Joe, but some of them walked their own path, and kudos to them for that. I mean, we had little army guys, 5-inch army guys, and the original 3 3/4 inch army guys. So, a little bit of everything, a whole lot of awesome, and some of these I would love to get into my collection. So anyway, like I said, this is kicking off G.I. Joe July here at the channel. And I know Hasbro does G.I. Joe June, but I chose July because that's when Cobra Convergence would go on, and it's the month of my birthday. So I love to celebrate the thing that has been a constant in my life ever since 1982 when I was a little kid till now, G.I. Joe. So please come along with me this month and enjoy all things G.I. Joe, military toys, and the like. So, like I said, we're kicking it off. We're going to go strong all month long. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.